All right, welcome into Starting Nine here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. This is a bonus episode. Well, it's really not. We only did one earlier this week, so I always try to get two done. Typically, we're on Tuesday and Wednesday. We're going to talk Heat again today. Tony Schwartz is going to join us. We're sponsored by our friends over at Signs Broward Fort Lauderdale, signsbrowardfortlauderdale.com, or Signs Broward Fort Lauderdale on Instagram. And on, Twitter, it's Signs Broward, but on Instagram for sure. This is a one-stop shop for everything signs. You can give them a call at 954-791-8685, 954-791-8685. They just did a whole bunch of new signs here in my area. I mean, literally, like you go down any street in Fort Lauderdale, like any district, shopping district or anything like that, particularly Las Olas, and you will find their signs. Why? Because you can trust them to do a great job. They're creative. They'll work with you. They'll fix them up if something goes wrong with them. We know, obviously, South Florida, the weather can get a little dicey here certain times of the year. So check out Signs Broward Fort Lauderdale. Again, check out the Instagram page because they have all of their new signs that are being posted there. There's a racetrack here locally that just used one of their signs. The restaurant Piazza downtown, they use their signs. So check them out, Signs Broward. And again, the phone number is 954-791-8685. All right, the Miami Heat won last night. That's right. They won. Somehow they overcame the worst loss in NBA history and won the next night. Heat fans panicking over a 1-point loss on the road against the defending champions when you didn't have your starting point guard. I do understand the circumstances of it. Obviously, you're up 14. You should have closed that thing. There were bad turnovers at the end of the game. I do feel if Erik Spoelstra ever practices again, which is not something that this team has done much this year. I think they've had 3 home practices the whole year. Pat Riley's turning over in his grave. When you look at what they need to do, just like inbounds passing. That's it. In fact, if they could sign Shane Battier or Mike Miller to a one-day contract, like if they've got a critical game just to inbounds the ball, that would probably be a good thing at this point because that was dicey again last night. But they won. And look, 2 things over the past couple of games in a big picture sense before we get into some of the players and we talk about the Sixers game, which is coming up on Saturday night. 2 things that I thought were impressive about this team. One is last year's team, after falling behind the way that they fell behind in Milwaukee with the way the Bucks were shooting early, would have folded. They would have folded. They would, whatever. Okay, they would not have come back in that game to take the 14-point lead. So that's the first thing. And then I don't know if last year's team would have rebounded the way they did last night, especially if they fell behind again. Especially after that time, they didn't have Jimmy Butler. And by the way, he still matters, okay? Let's stop this stuff, all right? What is going on? I'm reading some of this stuff on Twitter, Jimmy's contract. Look, we know what Jimmy's contract is. They know what Jimmy's contract is. They know what Kyle Lowry's contract is. This is the cost of doing business. Russell Westbrook has been traded 3 times in the past 2 years, okay, with that contract. If they needed to trade Jimmy at the end of this thing, they'll figure out a way to trade Jimmy. But look, you're not trading Jimmy right now. Jimmy is the reason that you got back off the mat. Just from an optics standpoint, it's an awful thing to be discussing, okay? So stop it. Does Jimmy need to give up the reins a little bit in the last minute of a game, particularly when it comes to step-back jumpers? Yes. Does Jimmy have a problem against Milwaukee? He does, by the way. I have done some research on this. His worst performances of his NBA career come against the Bucks. And that's all kinds of Bucks teams. Now, most of them had Giannis on it. There may be some correlation there. But he does not play well against Milwaukee. Just for example, like against Chicago in his career, since he's left the Bulls or since he was traded, he has averaged 26 points a game. Against Milwaukee, he's averaged 14. It's actually less than that if you include last year's playoff series. So he does not play particularly well against the Bucks, and they may see the Bucks. And I still think the Bucks are the biggest challenge in the Eastern Conference for Miami. I don't think it's the team we saw last night. I mean, really, Ben Simmons, like, is that what we're worried about here? And they're, Kyrie, yes, okay. The rest of their guards, like, they have interesting guards who can go off on you for a period of time. I've always liked Seth Curry. I liked him before he kind of got this opportunity. I thought he should have gotten the opportunity when he was with Dallas previously. And obviously we know Patty Mills is dangerous, but they don't have Joe Harris for the remainder of the season. That matters. And, Cam Thomas is a nice young player. I mean, they have some pieces, but like every one of their pieces is exploitable except for KD. The bigs, like, I mean, seriously, Andre Drummond is not a starting center in the NBA anymore. And LaMarcus Aldridge is not a guy you can trust to get big minutes. He can't move his feet. I mean, yeah, he'll hit a couple of mid-range jumpers, but no. Like that, they're not, they are, I mean, they're just a mercenary team, essentially. I mean, they were when Harden was there. They're even more so now. Like, I don't take them. I just don't take them that seriously. I mean, you can clip this. I mean, do what you want. I mean, the reality is it's a home game for the Heat. Like, right? I mean, you don't need home court advantage against Brooklyn. You have it already. Every time you step in that building, there are no Nets fans. Okay, so then beyond that, we talk about the other teams in the conference. Now, Boston has like gone on a tear that I was not anticipating. You know, credit to Udoka for getting them to play really high level defense. I don't think they have enough though. I mean, their point guard play is what? I mean, Marcus Smart handling down the stretch of big games. I mean, I know you'll put the ball in Tatum's hands and Brown's hands, but I don't know. Robert Williams is a good player. I don't see it with them either. Like, to me, they're not as good as the team that the Heat beat 2 years ago. Okay. And, you know, we talk about Brooklyn. We talk about Boston. We talk about Toronto is a challenging first round matchup for somebody. That's probably it. And Chicago, we just saw Chicago. Okay. You can give me all that. And I know Mike Wilbon's pushing this. Lonzo Ball and, you know, Caruso. And yes, he'll make them better defensively. Vucevic is not the same player he was. I don't know if it's Billy doesn't know how to use him or it's COVID related because he had a bad case and maybe it's affected him still. He's not. I mean, you used to fear him when you're a Heat fan, like you don't anymore. Levine's never been in the playoffs, has he? DeRozan's been in the playoffs. We've seen that. I mean, Chicago, I don't know. So that gets us to where we are here. It's either Milwaukee or, you know, maybe the challenge is Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia has the greatest variance in my view. Okay. Like they can click. Okay. They can. I know Heat fans want to dismiss it and everybody knows my feelings on James Harden. All right. But the potential is there for the two of them with Embiid to be really dynamic. And the reality is they have better players around them than people are giving credit for. I mean, Tobias Harris is a good player. Do I want him being one of my top two options in a big game? No. Okay. Is he a closer as they were trying to sell people on when they traded, decided not to re-sign Jimmy Butler? No. Okay. But he's a good player. Okay. And there are other good players on that team. I mean, I like Tyrese Maxey a lot. Liked him before the draft. Little surprised that the Heat didn't go that direction since they tend to just do whatever Cal says. Another Kentucky guy. It's unfortunate. Okay. Tybull's a great defender. He really is. He doesn't give you a whole lot on offense. He's a little Winslow-like in that way. But they can put a good team out there. I mean, I some questions about their depth, but their top two can be dynamic. We have seen that perimeter, it feels a little Wade Shaq-like, right? Harden is not Wade. Okay. Embiid maybe to the level or better than Shaq was when he was in Miami. Embiid is not LA Shaq. But they are dangerous. There's no question. I'm not going to poo-poo that. I'm not going to say, okay, the Sixers, the process, mock it, all the rest of that. When Simmons was there, yes, okay? Harden, we know, is going to shrink to some degree in the postseason. He always does. His percentages, you can give me the raw counting numbers. His percentages always come down in the postseason. He's a 31% career three-point shooter in the postseason. 31%, okay? So they have weaknesses, and Embiid's probably going to get hurt at some stage. And so these are things that you can hope for as a Heat fan. But we have to acknowledge at least it has the potential to be dangerous. All right, we're going to bring on Tony in a second to break down how dangerous. Before we do, I want to tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. They're already getting calls from us, which we really like to hear. All Pro Construction Builders. All Pro Construction Builders is based, they handle mostly, okay, but I want to make this clear. They handle mostly Miami-Dade and Monroe counties. But they've been getting some calls from Broward, and we certainly don't want to pass by our friends from Broward. So you definitely should check them out. All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them on Instagram at that address or at that at. And you should definitely reach out to Danny at 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. 29. They use only locally made products, American made. They'll do a great job from start to finish. And this is for impact windows and doors because we know, as I mentioned earlier with the signs company, hurricane season down here, lots of stuff messes with what you got built there, right? So you got to reach out to All Pro Construction Builders. Make sure you're protecting your home or business. Contact them at 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. That's Danny's direct sell. You're going to deal with the owner here, okay? Big Miami Heat fan. You can talk to him about that as well. You're not going to deal with just anybody, okay? And I can't really do that deal for you. Plus, by the way, they're going to give you a big discount, a 10% discount, which is significant, okay, when you're getting impact windows and doors, if you mention 5 reasons. Okay, so mention 5 reasons, get yourself a free estimate, a 10% discount. Reach out to Danny, 305-484-4429. You can see their work on their Instagram account as well, and I'm going to put it out there on the 5 reasons account too. All right, we are joined now by our guy Tony Schwartz. You can find him at Tony Schwartz NBA, which is convenient. Look at that. He's wearing a shape-shifting hat. We like that. And you can follow Tony's work also on Spaces. He's on the halftime pace Spaces during every Heat game, along with Marco and Sean. Sean was actually infiltrating the Brooklyn crowd tonight, although actually not really, because he was just with like-minded people in Brooklyn, because essentially that place is all Heat fans. I want to pivot, though, because, look, they're 2-1 this week. And however you look at it, the 1-point loss and everything that happened, I mean, we can break down the micro aspects of this, Tony, like that they probably should have won that game. If you went into this week saying you've got Chicago, you've got Milwaukee and Brooklyn on the road. You don't have Kyle Lowry for any of these games. You don't have Jimmy Butler and PJ Tucker for the third of these games. You would take 2-1 going into Philadelphia, would you not?
If you include Philadelphia, I would have took 1 and 3. You set yourself up all season to be in this position, to have this kind of space, to not have to force your way into the playoffs in the last minute and fight for like each seed. Miami's in a great spot. They're like, even now they're almost 2 games up on the Bulls on the first seed. So they're in such an incredible position. The fact that they were able to win the 2 before we started this trip meant so much, and now they're going into Philadelphia, and I feel as confident as I felt in them last night, regardless of who's on the floor.
Tony, let's look at the Sixers specifically, and the way I put it is, of the contending teams in the East, I think they've got the greatest variance. I think we kind of know what Milwaukee can be at this stage. Brook Lopez kind of pulls their ceiling back to where it was last year, but that's assuming Brook doesn't have any setbacks. But they don't have PJ Tucker this year. Their bench is a little different. I do think adding Wes Matthews back makes a difference against Miami in particular, because it's not a matchup that Jimmy likes. But we kind of know what they are. Brooklyn has great variance, but they're so far back at this point, I don't know if I could take them seriously. And Chicago, I don't feel like there is that incredible upside for Chicago. I think we've kind of seen it. Ball and Caruso make them better, but I don't know how much better. They've already kind of exceeded expectations. And Boston, I don't know. I think they're kind of playing at their highest level now. To me, Philly, it could be a disaster, okay? But it also could really click, right? I mean, that would be the concern for Heat fans, is that Embiid and Harden become a Shaq Wade dynamic here.
It's not a disaster unless Embiid gets hurt. That team is functional. Especially, I think James Harden's best version is the one where he's not having to create offense every single possession. So he was driving probably, I've looked up this stat not too long ago. He was driving with the net 16 times a game. That's down to 10 point something now. So he's basically taking 6 less drives at the rim every single game, because they can create offense in other ways on that team. So at a baseline, they're good. How good they can be, I don't know. They can fall apart super easy, right? We haven't seen enough of them to know how to attack them. I think the biggest difference for you is that you can see paths of attack for the Nets. Like, we can score on them. Right. We can score on the Cavaliers and the Bulls, and we know how to create that offense. I'm not 100% sure where we're creating offense with the 76ers, the Bucks, and honestly, the Raptors.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those teams, they're tough for me to project us playing. I think as much as me and you differ on stats and narrative, the Celtics, if we're talking about narrative, are peaking too soon. You're supposed to peak going into the playoffs, and they started too soon. They're giving so much energy just to fight their way back into this. So the 76ers are a real problem. I just need to see more of them.
When you look at their roster and you take a look at the pieces that you would want to put around Embiid and Harden, I see a lot of it too, because you have a secondary scorer there in Tobias Harris, which is what he should be. I mean, he shouldn't be one of your two lead guys you got to count on down the stretch. You have a dynamic playmaker who can get to the rim in Maxey. And you have Tybal, who gives you that sort of defender who you can put on just about anybody on the perimeter. Is there something that, in your view, they're missing?
Yeah, I mean, it's Tybal to me. He's such a negative on offense. You can just play 4-on-5 sometimes. It looks like Ben Simmons never left, and that allows you to create advantages against Joel Embiid. I mean, what are we going to do against that guy? We're going to hedge him hard every time he gets the ball in the paint. If we can do that without fear of the ball being kicked out to Maxey and killing us from a corner, so now, or to Tybal, and now you have to try and find somebody to close at the 2, because it can't be him. And that's where I think our plan of attack is with them. Now, the key with the 76ers is not being down so bad in the third quarter after we play the bench, and if they're staggering their stars, that we are in a situation where we have to play from behind. But as long as we're leading going into the clutch, that's not a team that really scares me too much either, as weird as that. So I'm talking my way through this, Ethan. I'm talking my way through the 76ers. I think we can beat them.
Well, no, I can tell. But let's get to it from the Heat side, because you mentioned as long as you have a lead late or a lead going in the fourth quarter. We have seen that leads going in the fourth quarter are problematic for this team. Other than Spo just basically lining them up to teach them how to throw inbound passes, or as I said earlier, signing Shane Battier or Mike Miller to do it on a one-day basis. How do they solve this? Because I feel like they found something last night, but I don't think they'll go back to it, which is the Tyler Bam two-man game, which was a necessity because of who was out. But we know that once he's back, and once the other guy is back, who I think a lot of us want the ball in his hands, which is Kyle Lowry, that we're not going to see the Bam Tyler two-man game anymore, because this is going to default back to ISO Jimmy, which I guess I just don't understand, because Jimmy in every way has been pure and unselfish since he's come to Miami. The way he's propped up his teammates, the way he's become a playmaker, his assist numbers. He has more 10 assist games with Miami in the past year and a half than he had his entire career coming into Miami. And yet at the end of the game, I mean, he thinks he's prime Kobe. And I don't really understand it. How do they get away from it?
I think you've seen enough now from Tyler Hero to trust that if you want this team to succeed, he's your closer. And that specific basketball is not a super complicated game. All right. It's reads and reactions. And the best way to force those reads and reactions is through the pick and roll. At the end of games, we hate the pick and roll. We hate it.
Right.
We want to go to every other type of look that we can possibly put out on the floor. But you're right. I don't know what it will take with Jimmy. I think that him being sidelined last game is probably the most hopeful piece of news that we could have gotten, because he got to see it firsthand that those two are so dynamic against incredible matchups. Like, Kevin Durant's out there on the floor, and it really didn't matter. There's nothing he could do against Bam and Tyler running that pick and roll. And it's a lethal combination. They're two young guys. They're hungry. And at some point, you have to start trusting Tyler to be that guy, because there's no other closer on this team. I mean, Kyle can turn back a clock one game. He probably will at some point, maybe two. But that's Tyler's spot. Consistently, he's making the right reads. He's making the right plays. It should be his job.
What does Jimmy do then? I mean, what is Jimmy's role? Is he a cutter? Is he a secondary option? Like, what is, because if the ball is going to be in Tyler's hands more, Kyle can spot up. Okay. I mean, we've seen him do that. He did that effectively during the finals. You know where Kyle's going to go. PJ's going to be in the corner, right? Okay. And we haven't even put Oladipo back in the equation yet, because we're honestly going to spend pretty much 24 hours from Sunday to Monday talking about Oladipo. But where does Jimmy go? Because Jimmy's role has been ball in his hands, try to get to the rack, which I think we all prefer, unless he gets swallowed up down there. And then obviously we all don't prefer the step back 3-point jumper.
Well, it depends on what Tyler wants to do, and how long we have when Tyler needs to be that guy. If it's like 6 minutes, I still want us running transition and pace, and Jimmy should just be running. He should be running to the rim and being there as a secondary roll man or an off-ball screen to set somebody free for a shot. Like, I don't know if he's going to be comfortable with that, but that's what he should be doing right now to help us create offense in the last like 6 minutes. That's another thing we do when games are tight. We completely stop running the floor.
Yes.
Tyler walks the ball up the court. Bam will walk the ball up the court to try and get in the DHO sets. We will leave pace behind like it's antiquated. And there's so many pieces that go into this. If we're in a half court setting, I just want Jimmy to be a roller. PJ sets some of the most effective hammer screens of all time. I don't think there's a reason Jimmy can't set a super effective hammer screen too. He's like the strongest guy in the court at any time. So he's just got to do that and let Tyler and Bam try and create enough vertical rim pressure that defenses bend. If a defense is bent, Jimmy Butler is killing whoever the closeout guy is on a cut. He's just killing him. So to me, that's what Jimmy needs to do. He just needs to get off ball. He's an intelligent player. He knows what to do. His IQ's there. If we need to go to an isolation clear out one possession down because the offense can't create anything, we can do it. I just don't want to see it 7 times in a row.
I'm with you. And I think that if he's not going to do that, and this is almost blasphemy, because this is not going to happen, Tony.
Don't you say sit him.
He's going to play the last 6 minutes. There's no question. And I would play him, but you can make a case. There's a legitimate case to be made that if you're going to play a Tyler Bam 2-man game, that the right small forward to be out there with them on the floor, because he will do the stuff you're talking about, is Caleb Martin. Okay. Because he will set the screen, he will cut, he will do all those kind of things. He's not looking for that opportunity. I'm not advocating that. I want to make that clear. But if you just look at how things would function best at the end of a game, that case can be made. Now, Vic adds another dimension to this, because what we're talking about here, which is Tyler-centric, and I think both of you and I agree on that, it does make you wonder where Vic fits at the end of games, because, he fits on the defensive end. Are you going to offense-defense sub Oladipo for Hero so that you have nobody who can get hunted on the other end? I don't know that I want Tyler coming off the floor at all, because I want his rhythm to be there. So we'll close with that. Well, let's say you're getting 85% Victor Oladipo, and I think you are, by the way. Everything I've heard behind the scenes is incredibly positive, and we did have it first that he would be playing on Monday, thanks to Shams and Woj for no credit on that. What is Vic's role in the last 6 minutes? Does he have one?
It depends. I think it depends on the matchup. I think he has one against the Cavs. He creates enough offense and he's strong enough defensively against their young athletic talent that I would probably trust him, over somebody else that's on the floor. Maybe we're running 3 guard at that point or trying to decompress into a 3-2 zone, but it depends on the matchup. Honestly, as I think about this more and more, when we play the 76ers, when we play the Bucks, I don't think he's closing. I don't see it.
I think you're right, because they're not taking PJ off the floor. If you're going to go with 3 guards, you're taking PJ off the floor. which is not going to happen there.
And this is my thing with the Jimmy sub for Caleb, right? And this is why it's so ridiculous to me. I don't give it I don't know if I can cuss on this show.
Yes, you can. Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
I don't give a damn what Jimmy doesn't give you offensively. On the other side of the ball, he's covering his ass, okay? Right, and you're not taking the strongest player off the court that's guarding the Joel Embiids, the Giannis's, the Chris Middletons, and putting a weaker switch defender onto the floor on the other end.
Yes.
I don't care. If he went 2 for 8, he could have went 1 for 37. He's still staying out on the floor because we needed him to win that game. If he wasn't on that floor defensively, they were killing us. And to that point, Gabe got bodied by a Drew Holiday drive. Yeah. And there was nobody to cover. So when that's Lowry, that's not happening. So we're going to see a different action there. And That was ridiculous. The other night was ridiculous. Twitter was ablaze. So I just wanted to put that out there.
No, you're right. And I think it raises a good point as we close here. And check out prizepicks.com. That's our official fantasy partner. Use the code 5, FIVE. Get your initial deposit match. And, of course, check out Tony on Pace and Spaces every halftime of every Heat game. There you go. No, that's not bet. Prizepicks.com. Use the code 5.
5.
Thanks to Manny for producing today. I know he's mobile today. You can close games on defense, but Heat Twitter hates it. That's the whole thing, right? Right? They hate it. You can close a game on defense, okay? And this team is more than capable of closing a team on defense, but they look so clunky offensively when they do it that Heat Twitter's not going to be satisfied with it, right? So, but championship teams have closed games on defense. I feel like 3 out of 4, maybe 4 out of every 5 games this team closes are going to be closed.
What team has fans watched for 70 games? What team have they watched? It has not changed. It is the same players. We are trying to beat teams by out-rebounding them, having more possessions, and running in pace. That's how we win. And defense. It's led by defense.
No, and that's the thing. They're a very good offensive team for stretches of the game and when they're shooting well. But at the end of the game, things do bog down, and they have to, they're going to have to find another way to play. The thing about it is there are pieces to play with. This is not a team that doesn't have a piece. Every game, Tyler Hero gets a little bit better at this. Every game, Bam gets a little bit more assertive. Those are your pieces. You have a Hall of Fame point guard who's coming back. And then you have Jimmy Butler, who can be effective, as you said, when the defense is bent. The problem against Milwaukee late in games is it bends towards him. And that has been a big issue. And it's a problem that he's had for years, honestly, with them. That has just kind of, I think, been more spotlighted of late. All right, follow Tony at Tony Schwartz NBA. Follow the rest of our content here on the channel today. I think Dono's on today. He's got jury duty next week, so make sure you catch him this week. He'll be talking about Tua.
Airing the man out.
Yeah, well, hopefully, you know what? He's got to make something up. That's all. Well, no, do your civic duty. All right, thanks to our sponsors, Signs Broward and Fort Lauderdale. Hopefully it's not a divorce proceeding. Signs Broward of Fort. No, actually, that would need jury duty for that. Signs Broward of Fort Lauderdale.
That's true.
All Pro Construction Builders. And that is funny. Depot comes back before Kendrick Nunn. By the way, Depot's coming back before Markieff Morris, although we expect that dude as well. Thanks, Holla, for the comment. We Tyler to close and hit a game winner. He tons of first year. We did it. He did it now. I do think you're going to see some of those in the postseason. All right. Thanks to everybody for following. And we'll be back to starting 9 next week.